customer relationship is huge because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. Sweet. Right. I'm excited to get going.
All right. All right, let me get this rolling, guys. Let's see who we got in here. Get this. I'm gonna record this for us as well.
I just got a pop up for that too.
Did you? Okay. All right. Yep. So we're recording now. Let me just. Right. All right, great. So we'll get rolling here. Looks like we got a number of people already in here. So good afternoon.
You recognize some of these names too, Pete.
Do you?
This is great.
Yeah. Good, cool. So good afternoon, everybody. Pete here with JobProgress. We've done a number of these. I appreciate. I definitely see some people that have been on some of these before, so that's great. And today, I'm joined by Chris and Joe from Lead Scout. Great guys working with us, partnered with JobProgress, and a great tool they've created there at Lead Scout for your canvassing. And I'll let you guys do a quick little introduction of yourselves here, and then we'll get rolling.
Yeah, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. So my name is Joe Salowitz. I'm a founder of Lead Scout, also operating member. I'm really on the tech side. So you might not see my face a whole lot when you're dealing with the product or with our customer service team, but I'm behind the scenes pulling a lot of strings when it comes to the product itself. If you ever get a message from me, that probably means I've had to fix something for you, or maybe you have a feature request that you put through. I'm really excited to be here. We've got some good content today. Thank you, Pete, for putting it together. Go ahead, Chris.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm Joe's counterpart, and I handle the customer sales. So you probably have seen my face or maybe talked to me. So we kind of handle things yin and yang, and we've got some people that support us in the background that probably don't get as much credit as they should. But we are thankful that we get to be on the front lines with JobProgress and with you all today.
Yeah, guys. I mean, this, I was just saying to Joe, this topic really came out of a panel discussion that we did, about 2 months ago, guys, where we were all on there, and this came up, Joe. I think you actually talked a little bit about it, and I wrote some notes down, and I thought this is a great topic to come back to and revisit. And, talking about the customer relationship, and what really spurred this, honestly, was two things. One is that from a support standpoint at JobProgress, we always deal with referral sources. As these customers come on board with us, we enter in their referral sources. And one of the main things that always comes up is that the bulk of their business is still coming from customer referrals, right? So that relationship initially all the way through, to maintaining that relationship afterwards is, a huge thing, right? Like that's a big part of it. So, but the thing that really surprised me was I was actually on another webinar not too long ago, and the topic came up, and they were talking about the fact that 31% of customers in today's day and age, and when it comes to millennials, the number jumps to 44% of those individuals prefer a contactless sales process. They don't want a salesperson involved. So I found that very, very interesting. So how do you maintain that personal touch, that relationship over time? The possibility of getting those folks to then push leads back to you or push referrals back to you if you're not really even involved, right? So it definitely creates a challenge that I think technology helps with, obviously, but at some point, do we still get to maintain that, that one-on-one approach, even though maybe we're doing it digitally and not face-to-face, so just wanted to kind of walk through that today and kind of start from the beginning of the process, what you guys think is your feel on it. With generating, this is something that I think your product plays into, is generating those leads and making that initial contact with the customer and then working your way from there. So I'll let you guys kind of take the stage here and talk about a little bit, because that is the lead gen part of it, I guess, is something that you guys have really worked so hard to capture in your product. So
yeah, sure. And a majority, of referrals, or majority of leads coming from referrals, there's no crime in that. That's okay. But you hope that you have some other revenue sources, if you will. in addition to that. So I think having the majority come from referrals is going to be the case for a long time. And that's the case for the majority of products that exist, or the majority of companies that exist out there today. Again, there's no crime in that. That's a great place to get your leads from. And I think that's a product probably of great service, great ratings, great presence and brand awareness. So those are all really good things. I would never recommend that somebody tries to discount those things and tries to take away from those things. But you got to diversify your portfolio, right? You're not going to just own stock in one company in the stock market. You gotta also have multiple sources of lead generation, and that applies here too. With Lead Scout, we're big advocates of the direct mail side, the personal touch that goes into that. When there's essentially two ways to break it down. How do you know your customer? Well, you can know them by actually talking to them. That could happen through your customer service channel, social media, etc. You get to know them that way. The other, burgeoning area of getting to know your customer is data and data collection. If you have, JobProgress is a great example of this, right? You can build your data arsenal with JobProgress by just tracking people through the pipeline, knowing where they are, knowing what types of needs they have, and then you can add to that with all sorts of other tools that exist on the market today as well. Knowing people's economic situation, knowing their geographic situation, the weather patterns around their homes. All those things matter, and that helps you get to know your customer too. At Lead Scout, we're big advocates of tailoring your approach and personalizing your approach for your customers, using the data that you've collected. If you're not collecting data, you need to be. And then also using the information you already know about your customers from your relationships. So at a bird's eye view, that's the other bucket, right? You got referrals, and then you got this cold calling kind of lead generation that happens by getting to know your customers through data and through your customer service lines. And then what do you do with that personalization? You take it to the next level with your marketing. I'm sure we'll get into that later on in this call. What do you think, Chris?
No, that's great. I think, a couple of examples of where referrals breaks down is if we're trying to penetrate a new market, right? Geographically and from a product and service standpoint, where we can't really rely on referrals that much. I think, again, from a bird's eye view, it's all about I think maybe the reason why 44% of millennials would prefer not to have a face-to-face or contactless sales process is they ultimately want to know you've got your stuff in order. I mean, you got to have your data in order, know them, know what they need, and be able to communicate those steps throughout the process. Why JobProgress makes so much sense from a job management standpoint, because if your process isn't airtight, the customer sniffs that out, and you can have a really friendly face salesperson that comes to the door and all that stuff. But if you don't have every part of that process locked down, they smell that and they're kind of like, how could you not with the technology that you have available? You don't need to write this stuff down. You don't need to memorize it and remember it. This is all available. So as the customer is feeding us information, or we're creating information around the scope of the project, that's all right there in front of us. And we can provide that through text, through email, through phone call. And if we can make good on all of those little individual promises along the way, then they know our stuff's in order. And ultimately, we just want to know if someone's organized, because we entrust people with the things that are most valuable to us when we know they're organized and they're not going to forget or lose track of it. So I think that's from a bird's eye view where the technology really helps us harness doing things well over just like a gregarious person or face or voice. It's the systems behind it that really wow people.
Yeah, and I think thinking about it like this, technology has given us the ability to not necessarily just take somebody's word for it that we ran into, at the local restaurant or something like that. If somebody says to me, hey, I use this guy to do my roof, I can go online now and I can find out everything I need to know about that company, right? Through reviews, through his Facebook page, through their Instagram page, through their website. So social media has changed so much of that, I think, and
Mhm.
technology, and this kind of leads into like you were talking about, Joe, taking that information now that we've gathered and marketing it, and I think that plays into, like you said, Chris, with the way these folks are doing their research ahead of time, right? Like they want to look and see, like, hey, this guy's got a quality website. This guy's got an easy way for me to communicate with him. He's got, a quality looking Facebook page with tons of reviews. He's got a good Google reviews. Like all that stuff now plays into the decision of, especially like millennial people are going to be much more apt to maybe go and use that technology to find out ahead of time who they're dealing with. So, a lot of times they're coming to the table with so much information that they're almost
Mhm.
sold on the product ahead of time. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they don't necessarily need a salesman to sell them because they've already made that decision based off of the homework that they've done.
Precisely.
And that's where I think, like you were saying, Joe, taking that information now and doing targeted marketing is really becoming more beneficial and more important, even so than the face-to-face meeting, in the sales, what we're doing sales wise, what our salesmen are doing out in the field, right?
Yeah. It used to be that you just look up, a business in the Yellow Pages, right? Phone number, and you'd be going in blind for the most part. Maybe there's some brand awareness there, maybe there's some referral knowledge there, but you'd essentially be going in blind. You'd have a list of phone numbers you call, right? Now the qualification happens, just like you were saying, Pete. The qualification happens so early because the first thing the millennial generation, my generation, does, right, is what do? They Google it, and so number one, how's your search engine optimization, right? What's your presence look like? Roofers in my area, window replacement in my area. How do you show up in that list? That's number one. If you're not even on the list, I was just having a conversation today about a nerdy conversation about pagination, paging out results. People don't look at page 2 of results. It's not just that they don't look at it, they don't trust it. They think if you're on page 2, you're not good. You might be great, but if you're on page 2, you're not good just because you're on page 2.
True.
Right? So that's important. And then once you see somebody on page 1, what's the next thing you're doing? You're looking at ratings, right? So if you have, that's another area of qualification. So the ratings and the reviews, if you're not upholding that 4 or 5 star review, you're out immediately. This is before anybody's even talked to you, right? So all that stuff, all that juice that you have as a sales rep that you bring to the process, all that value you bring to the process, it doesn't matter at this stage. They haven't even, approached you at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you get to that point of, okay, now they're willing to engage with your marketing material. It's probably a website, maybe social media, Facebook, something like that. It's probably, for millennials, it's probably not a phone number right now still, right? The phone number is like the last thing in the process, whereas it used to be the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have a website that has to make an impression, photos of jobs completed and product that you are proud of, and the installations that you're proud of. All that stuff needs to prove that it's great. And then, what value are you providing there of answering their question? Because they come to the table with a question, and their question probably is, can you do my project within my price range or with the product that I desire? Mm-hmm. So how are you answering that question on your social media and on your website? We see a lot of requests for like instant quotes. How can I do something? How can I provide a quote in a way where I don't really have to talk to somebody? I can kind of triage through a Quizlet or something like that, and get my answer quickly. And then when I'm interested, when I realize that this company is within my price range, they have products that are sufficient or something that I'm looking for, and they're in my area and they've got great ratings. Now I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to call them and see if I can make an appointment. I want to do all of that, so I only have to call 2 or 3 people and not 6 and get a bunch of contractor appointments that mess up my schedule.
Yep.
That's the journey that these millennials are going. I keep calling millennials. Anybody who's tech savvy is going just to get to the phone call. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, we're rubbing off on our parents, so I think everybody's kind of picking up on what we're doing.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. One thing you left off, financing. I mean, I feel like we always have to like throw that in there. I know our financing friends would appreciate that, but being able to talk to a millennial about financing is key. So making sure that that's forefront in some capacity. Because sometimes it's not so much you fit in my budget. It's like, oh, I didn't know a roof cost that much, and I need one. So how do I make that more of a reality for my family right now?
Yeah.
And I think and along these lines too, I think like JobProgress, we have what we call a customer webpage, right, where you can share all your information with the customer. And I think that's it gets overlooked in the fact that the transparency, right? I think transparency is a huge part of business now where it wasn't before, right? So, people want to go and know that the whole process is going to be transparent. I'm going to know everything you guys are doing, when you're doing it, right? I may not even be there, but I still want to be able to keep an eye on things and still want to know what's going on. And I think that plays into, people's decision as well, being able to kind of be in the loop, and not just be like, hey, we're going to do your roof. And, all of a sudden people are on my roof and I didn't even know what was going on. And, I think the newer generation, the more tech savvy generation really wants to be like on top of it. They almost want to be like their own project manager in a way. Right. And so I think that becomes a big factor too. And, there are tools out there now. JobProgress, allows you to do that, to be part of that process. And I think that becomes a big selling point too. For these people when they're developing that customer relationship, and it's part of the sales process.
100%. No, I'm really glad you brought the transparency in terms of the scheduling and the timing and wanting to know everything that's happening. Even if they're not there, although they're probably there, they're just probably helping their 9-year-old with their school because the 9-year-old's not at school, and so they're home, but they're really not home. I mean, all of us just need to look no further than like we text. I mean, I'm surprised you didn't text me to say I'm here when you met at the office. We're always keeping each other in the loop on very little details, right? Almost insignificant, but we have the ability. So I know everyone listening has the desire to keep their customer in the loop, but it's very difficult because you're juggling a lot of different balls. But if you can figure out a way to leverage the technology that's out there to communicate in those little ways quickly, often, it takes away a lot of the sins that exist in every project, because we all screw up and wrong products delivered, or it gets delivered to the wrong house, or these crazy things that happen. But if we're communicating along the way, people have so much grace when they're kept in the know. I come from a supply chain background. So in trucking, you're late all the time, but people expect you to be on time all the time. So it's just like this crazy dichotomy. But if you just communicate and say, hey, I'm running behind, I'll be there in 2 hours, or I missed my delivery appointment, and you let them know ahead of time, they just work you in. Same thing as for a contractor. I mean, they have so much grace if we can communicate. So that transparency of where we're at in the process, that replaces the smiling salesperson in many ways.
Yeah, we put on a lot of marketing materials, we put text or call. This is probably a common tactic a lot of you guys are already pros at. But text or call is huge because that gives that accessibility to somebody who just doesn't want to pick up the phone. Send a quick text. You can send 50 of those in a couple of minutes, right? So copy, paste, all that stuff. That makes it really efficient for the customers. And I think especially during COVID times when things are a little bit messy, everybody's trying to figure out what this new life looks like for the time being, right? Keeping it informal and being okay with that is great. So text me, hey, if I need to look at something, do some measurements, let's do it together. Quick FaceTime me, or text me the dimensions of that room you're trying to redo. I just got a text from a contractor yesterday with that exact question. He said, hey, I can't swing by. I'm halfway across the city. Can you quick measure this for me real quick? He's asking me to do something, right? And usually that would be an inconvenience. I actually feel better about that contractor for some reason because he has this personal connection with me where he feels comfortable actually texting me saying, I think this guy could actually do the measurements.
He needs to do something for me.
Yeah, totally, right? That's a personal anecdote. Take it for whatever it's worth. But the thing here is that you need to be comfortable, and it's okay to be informal. And I think that goes a long way with the younger audiences.
Yep.
I was going to say, and I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk about text as part of the customer relationship, because like you said, 5 years ago, I think if I would have got a text from someone who was my contractor, I probably would have been like, what is this? Like, this guy's unprofessional, right? Like, he's texting me, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is not a professional approach. And today's day and age, that's completely different. Like you said, you actually feel more comfortable with that guy. Like, you feel like you have a better relationship with him because he is texting you.
Yeah.
Right. And how important is that? I mean, I know, we talk about like the 80-20 rule, that 80% of your text messages that get sent get opened, right? And 20% of your emails, right? So texting is the way to go nowadays, and I think I'm glad you talked about that, because I think that's a huge part of the process now. And, addressing that right away with the customer. Hey, are you okay with me texting you, about stuff? Like, texting has become a big part of JobProgress's platform, as far as two-way texting goes. The customer being able to text us back, and being able to track all that, is a huge part, I think, of doing business nowadays. It's like you said, business has become altogether, I think, more informal, right? And I think the newer generation and the more tech-savvy folks appreciate the fact that it's more informal, and that I feel more like I have a personal relationship with this person that I'm doing business with than a professional relationship, and I think that goes a long way. So, I
was going to say, I saw a billboard. There's a little bit of a feedback. Are you hearing that at all? Okay. I saw a billboard for an attorney. It said call or text. A billboard for an attorney. It was call or text. So we know that we've definitely gone into that realm where texting can be a method to break the ice. And like Joe said, we encourage all of our users to put call or text on their mailers or their handwritten notes. And we see those. We use some tools that allow us to see that traffic and allow the user to see that traffic. And we see text come in. And that just tells us that, if there wasn't a text, they probably wouldn't have reached out. And so, hey, I got your mailer or whatever. I'd like to learn more.
There's an interesting, so what you just said is we see those texts coming in. So this is something that's, I think, critical. We're talking about informality, which I think is vital. You got to come across as informal, accessible, all that stuff that means be present on social media to answer people's stuff. It means texting people. It means being available and communicating often and always. But there's a really formal side to this, really strict professionalism that needs to be present in your business as well. And that is tracking and analytics. You have to, no matter what you're doing, it has to have some sort of visibility internally, or else you can't make informed business decisions. So the formal side of this is, if you're putting a phone number anywhere, a digital ad or a direct mail piece or social media, it used to be burner phones, use a burner phone of sorts, something that you can have multiple numbers, right? And those each link to distinct things. So if you're doing a Christmas campaign, make sure that you have a phone number that is directly associated with that Christmas campaign, and a landing page URL that's yourcompany.com/Christmas, whatever it is, right? A landing page that is distinct, so that gives you these silos of information, so you can see how your stuff is performing, and who's responding to it and how effective your messaging is. That's the formalized part of all this informality, right? You got to have that tracking so that you can then take that information and make decisions off of it that to improve the next time. Or here's the other thing, to retarget. So if you have a campaign that you run and you're running it on 1,000 people and you get 200 clicks, and because you're tracking, who clicked, right? You got some email addresses, maybe you got some phone numbers with that. Not all 200 of those people are going to be leads today. But when you do the next campaign and you tweak it slightly, you give them another upsell like you would in person, right? But you do your next mail campaign, your next digital campaign, your next marketing campaign, whatever it is, you target those 200. And now you have 200 people who were interested enough to click before or to respond before. You're targeting them again. And then you do that, you rinse and repeat. And by the end, you have 15, 20, 25, 50 people who are hyper interested and hyper targeted, hyper personalized, highly qualified leads. They're not referrals. They're people that you generated and you qualified. You made them happen because you went down the pipeline. that retargeting is only made possible by you actually setting up the tracking mechanisms.
Yeah.
You can't just be blasting, 1-800 new roof anymore as a vanity phone number. You can't track that.
Great number.
Great number.
You're going to have to just kind of let it go.
Exactly.
I know my wife's number. I don't know. I call Joe like 5 times a day. I don't even know his number.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
knowing a number are over. I know my wife's number and that's it. So
it works. It works fine. But that's
or if you're a pizza shop, I guess you can keep your 1-800
Yeah.
pizza. But yeah, trackability is huge on the phone.
So let's talk about the personal touch, because I think you guys do this really well with the mailers that you guys do, right? So, the mailers are specific. The mailers are, customer focused, and they have that personal touch. And how important is that personal touch to the process? And at what point do we, like you said, if we start out sending this out to 1,000 people, Joe, at what point do we start to go with that personal touch? Do we do it right off the bat? Or do we start general, and then when we get it narrowed down to a smaller number, now we bring that personal touch in?
Yeah, the personal touch is the only thing that matters.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the me generation, or is that the one above us? Is that the boomers? I forget. Who's the me generation?
I don't know.
We
We should have gotten our generation.
Every generation.
before-
Every generation. I mean, personalization is truly the only thing that matters.
But the other, if you don't mind, the other
go
one
ahead.
that we use is relevancy.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
in marketing, we want to think about relevancy before we start thinking about differentiation. And oftentimes we go to differentiation first and we say we're master elite or HAG certified or whatever the certification qualifications are. We've been around for 60 years, although that's a big one. But if we first aren't relevant or personal, meaning you actually have a need for my service, here's why, or I'm working with your neighbor. I don't really care that you're HAG certified because I don't even know what that means. So I would like to hear more about that, but I first need to know that you're personal to me, personalized to me, and then you've got my ears. I'm all ears on the differentiation, but first be relevant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. So there's this interesting dichotomy, especially among the younger generations. They love technology and the fact that it's embedded in their lives and they use it for everything. I use it for everything. But they also hate technology, right? And it's this interesting love-hate relationship. So you have to be present on digital. You have to have the baseline. You have to be have that personal touch, that relevancy. But at the same time, you have to. The easiest way to break through the noise and create differentiation is to be actually low touch. What I'm getting at here is we've really developed this system within Lead Scout that we really believe in. We've seen a lot of effectiveness with it, which is handwriting notes, right? So we're talking about digital, we're talking about all that stuff, but one of the most powerful tools that we use is actually handwriting notes, hand stamping them, hand addressing them, putting them in brown envelopes. It's like you're getting a note from your grandma, and that stuff works. It works like crazy because everything else is digital. So the digital is an expectation, it's a baseline, but how do you differentiate beyond that? We think actually a lot of those traditional mediums, phone calls, saying, hey, happy birthday, leaving a voicemail. Some of the more traditional methods are actually super highly effective to break through the noise. The only way you can do that is by personalizing the approach. To get back to your question, the content needs to be there to say, hey, name, so you got to know the name of the person, hey, Jim, and then you go on to talk about their home, why they matter to you. Maybe it's a thank you. Maybe it's a, hey, we're in your neighborhood. Maybe it's a follow-up on a past quote. All those things are ways to differentiate yourself and personalize yourself in that moment.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I think a little tiny bit, you guys broke up just a little bit, lagged a little bit, but that's all right. One of the things that I want to talk about is, and I think you touched on this, Joe, one of the other time when we were on that panel discussion, is making yourself relevant by being local, right? Like I'm your local roofer, right? And how much does that come into play? in an age where, like you said, we're not necessarily asking, the person where we get our breakfast from every day, who they're using as their local roofer or something like that.
Yeah.
It's more digital, but how does the local portion of that still come into play, right?
Yeah.
And how important is the fact that I'm your local guy?
Yeah. So you'd mentioned just a few moments ago about the 1,000, right? Do we take the 1,000 and drill that down? I think we really approach mail marketing, handwritten notes from a very small group first, a very small targeted audience first. So we really don't get into the 1,000 very often. And the reason is because that personal, localized feel. And when we say local, it's not even just like, we're in a city called Grand Rapids, decently sized city, but also small town feel. But like, I'm in Eastgate neighborhood. And if a roofer does a roof in my area, being able to say, I'm in your area, right? And I'm doing a job here. And I notice your home, has a need for my service, whatever that is. Making it feel like they're right around the corner is massive in terms of me feeling like, it's kind of that informal thing. They're not some big company in the city or off who knows where, but they're right in my neighborhood. And to be able to communicate that, and we've developed our platform to allow users to create these really hyper targeted mini campaigns to 30, 40, or 10, write 10 handwritten notes to the 10 neighbors around that job you're doing that you saw had need for your service, and make it really targeted and personal. That local feel, I think, is essential to getting their attention, because there's a lot of other roofers in that area, and many of them may not be speaking in those terms. They might actually be kind of touting how big they are. But we want to be more approachable and small feel.
Yeah, that's a great point, because we were talking about referrals, direct referrals earlier. So a lot of that, what that tends to be is you're waiting for the referral to come to you, but what you're talking about is leveraging your existing customers to kind of draw out referrals. So if you have, hopefully your database of existing customers, what addresses they exist at, and you can still have that database, right? So leverage that information, and then look in those the neighboring homes, right? Who else might need your services in those neighboring homes, and then formulate campaigns around those homes. So if you have an active project, that might look like, hey, we're in your neighborhood, we're doing this project, here's the product we're using, this would look great at your home. Hey, and by the way, we noticed that you also have issues with your shingles as well. If we're doing roofing, right? You have issues with your shingles, so you'd be a great candidate for this job as well. So that could be that personalized message within the neighborhood. Those people might not be direct referrals, except for that message. If you're pushing that might draw them out. So that's another lead source for you in your neighborhood, right? You can also do thank you notes to your existing customers. They might need work again. They might refer you, say, I don't need work right now, but my cousin does. So you're drawing out those direct referrals. You're not waiting for them to come to you.
Yeah, no, that's a huge one. And I'm sure you hear that a lot, Pete, and many listening. So many people just forget who their roofer or siding or window person was. We just forget. And so we're at that dinner party or, doing a social distancing safe, party. And someone's like, hey, I had to get a new roof. You know anybody? Jack, didn't you get your roof done 3 years ago? Yeah, I don't remember, and that can be easily solved by just, staying top of mind, beyond just the sales, kind of getting back to the topic, beyond just that sales personal touch, that salesperson, but the life cycle of that customer, that they're always a customer, even though you hopefully only put one roof on their house. Well, they hope, we hope more maybe. But yeah, so I think there's that. The other part of the local, to answer your question, Pete, why is local important? Because people live in their local area. So whether it be the local, Little League team or, the run club or whatever it is, there's all of these little things that are happening locally. And if we can be a part of that in some way, or at least show that we understand that local area and what's happening, whether it be just supporting a dumpster day in your neighborhood, right? I'm sure that's kind of a common thing. just being around and visible in these local affairs goes a long way, because when they have that dinner party, they're more likely to be like, that one local roofer. Yeah, I remember him. Wasn't he at the dumpster day or whatever it was?
Yeah, and if we're talking digital, which I know is the theme of this conversation, what that looks like today is Facebook and next door. There's those communities that exist around each neighborhood. Usually tight neighborhoods would have a community like that. So get access to those within your existing market, either as a user or as a business. Sometimes they have solicitation rules, so you got to be careful there. But as a person, you can have a personal profile that has access to those things. And just be the person on there that's always, if somebody's like, hey, does anybody know a plumber? Be the guy that raises your hand. It says, yeah, we do that. Just give me a call, text directly, right? Be there all the time. Having somebody dedicated to that. That's the social media presence that really matters. In addition to some of the outreach stuff that you're doing in person, dumpster days, things like that.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you bring that up. We're located here in a fairly small town in New Jersey, where JobProgress is located, and I live in town, and we have a Facebook page that is specific to the town itself. It's a tight-knit community. Everybody knows everybody, that kind of thing. And here they do exactly that. You have people constantly on there. Hey, does anybody know an electrician? Has anybody had their roof put on lately? I need my bathroom remodeled. And one of the things that I like that they do, like you said, they have their solicitation rules, but once a month they open it up for a day and let everybody kind of shamelessly plug their business on there. If they're local, it's all local businesses. So, it becomes like this marketplace, but a way for it just to showcase just the local community businesses that are owned here locally, so that everybody that's on there, thousands of people in town, can help these guys out by working with those local businesses and choosing to use them. So it's a great tool. I mean, Facebook obviously has come a long way and done some amazing things for business. In the way that you can market on there and the way that you can utilize it. It's just an incredible tool. So, and it holds a lot of weight, when it comes to keeping that relationship, maintaining, creating that relationship with the customer and also maintaining it. And this kind of leads into like what you were saying, Chris, is talking about how do we stay prevalent? How do we maintain that relationship after we've done a roof, right? Like let's say we put some roofs on in a neighborhood, and so many folks, I think, put a roof on and then move on, right? And then, and maybe don't necessarily capitalize on the fact that there are, other opportunities right there in that same neighborhood. I know in some businesses they call it circle prospecting, and this is, I think, a shameless plug for Lead Scout, but it's a perfect tool for this. If my salesman's going out there and he's selling a job in a neighborhood, he's obviously looking at the other houses as he's coming into that neighborhood, and he can see there's other business opportunities there. So how do we stay prevalent? How do we maintain that relationship with that customer who we did work for? Because just because I did their roof doesn't mean that 3 years from now or 2 years from now they're not going to need siding, they're not going to need windows, right? So all of those are potential customers in the future as well. So
yeah. No, I think there's a lot we can say on that, and it'll probably just kind of start to come out naturally. But one thing that I'll lead with is don't be afraid to ask and tell your customer that part of your marketing and sales to stay in business and be a lifetime roofing company that doesn't just disappear in 5-10 years is that you need to continue to grow your business. So as a way of, as a marketing sales process, we let the neighbors know what we're doing. Not only because we would love to do work with them, but from a safety and a courtesy standpoint, right? The debris in the area, that kind of language we've all heard and used, but let the homeowner know that you're going to go do that. Number one, it could give permission to use their name. So you can actually create a personal connection to not only the job site, but who lives there. There's a family that lives there that you're servicing. But then what it will actually do, what we found is that then it creates this idea. You'd think that people just automatically want to tell their neighbors, but they don't. But then it kind of creates, oh, that's right. And then the next time they're out there, raking leaves or doing whatever, like, yeah, I don't know, did you get something from so-and-so? They said that they were going to send something out. What they've just done is started a conversation about you that never would have happened otherwise. So with Lead Scout, it's that you sell that job, and then you like you said, you draw a circle, you hit the neighbors, the surrounding neighbors, with mailers or handwritten notes, but let the homeowner know that you're doing that, and that it's a way for them to support you and your business, so that you're around in a couple of years if something happens. And everybody appreciates that. Plus, they want to brag a little bit to their neighbors of who they're working with, and they want to be the source of a referral. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
That's a great point. Well said. I see this question by Marela. Hopefully I'm saying your name right. Marela, the question was, how would you recommend to utilize your system with gated communities and HOAs, et cetera, if you haven't done any work there yet, or if you have, right? I think that's an interesting question. We've gotten it before, and our answer has typically been that stuff is usually centralized. So, going to the individual home isn't going to do much. Even if you're, this kind of applies to condos too, in a little bit of a unique way as well. So figuring out the property management organization and really putting your weight around that, and influencing them, because they're usually going to have a contractor of choice. So you have to influence the property management or the HOA themselves, or figuring out where the president of the HOA is. That's the most effective strategy to getting in and becoming a contractor option for those groups. That takes a little bit more of that typical sales approach of in-person conversation and meetings and things like that. The other strategy is to target homes, individual homes. So you get the democratic approach of convincing everybody in the HOA that they need your services, whatever those things are, and then they go to their HOA and put pressure on them, right? Condos are a little bit unique, and typically it's like, you've got somebody owns multiple vacation homes or whatever it is. So you're not going to market to those homes directly with direct mail, or digital ads, but you're going to want to figure out where's the property manager or the homeowner, where do they live, right? So that takes a little bit of digging. That comes down to that data approach. You have to be able to curate your data and understand who owns what. And if you're marketing to an apartment building, you're not going to get a lot of results by marketing to the apartment residents, right? Or the condo residents. You're going to get more traction by figuring out who owns that and pursuing them. I would say that almost always has to be a unique approach for each group you're dealing with. The benefit there is you can put a little bit more sales resources behind it, because the win is bigger. The pot of gold is bigger at the end of the rainbow.
I think you guys got another question there.
Yeah, Peter asks, can you explain the software, how it works? Chris, you want to take a crack at that?
Yeah, I mean, back to Pete's initial question about the neighborhood, and Pete, you said the salespeople are in the neighborhood and they're noticing these homes. What we've found, and this isn't probably going to be a shocker to many of you listening, is that we don't do any, unless they're using Lead Scout or a prospecting tool like it. They're not doing anything, right? We do two things, and we ask this question every demo. If you've done a demo with me and I didn't ask you, I'm sorry, but when you see opportunity, what do you do? And these are the two things we hear: nothing, or we write down the address. We write it down, right? There's a scrap paper on the center console of my truck, and I jot it down. Neither of those work, right? Because back to Joe's point earlier about being having some level of professionalism with how we're curating and managing data. That data, there's a reason why JP has been so successful in helping you take so many things and create them in an organized fashion. We can't write that stuff down everywhere. And so we may write it down, but then it just, my daughter pukes on it, later that night, and I forget the address. So really how it works, Peter, is when you see opportunity, it takes two taps. So you see it you're on a map on your mobile app on your iPad or iPhone, and you see the house, you tap it, it lays a pin, and then you name the opportunity, whatever, you can customize that. I see missing shingles. So tap, that address is saved, the time, it's timestamped, whoever the salesperson is, their name's on it, the stake is in the ground. That is now a data point on a map that can be visually seen, but then also marketed to. So that's how we then transition to the marketing. As we say, rather than just hitting every door direct or an entire zip code, now that we've tagged those 10, 20, 30 homes around a job we've done, let's create a mail campaign that's specific to those 20, 30 people. And what Joe and I have done even further with one of our mailers is we have a dynamic or a variable print mailer that says of those 30 mailers, we can actually have a different mailer go out for every single person depending on what their opportunity or need is. So not only can we create these really focused, cost-efficient mail campaigns, we're not committing to big dollars, but we can make the messages specific to those individuals in that neighborhood. So really, when you boil it down, it's just don't leave an opportunity in the rearview mirror, tag it, and then either market to it right then and there. You could send a handwritten note right away, on-demand mailing, or save it for a rainy day or later that week to create a campaign that's impactful for that local community.
So that's the value. I'm the tech guy. Let me explain what it is, what it looks like, right? It's like a Lamborghini. I got to explain what color it is and stuff. So it's a software platform. We have a website, web portal. We have a mobile app when you're on the go to collect prospects. So you tap on a map, and that creates the prospects. And then the other part of it is the marketing. So you can do direct mail with another tap. It's essentially 3-4 taps to get from laying down a marker to sending a direct mail piece. That can be a postcard or a handwritten note. I say handwritten, I'm saying actually handwritten, hand addressed. It's highly effective marketing, right? Digital advertising for brand awareness, banner ads, and all that stuff comes with, you can get phone tracking, text tracking, you can get URL tracking on those things. So it's essentially canvassing plus marketing.
Yep.
All in one app. What's our connection to JobProgress? You can import information into JobProgress, leads into JobProgress. JobProgress, you can take that data and start utilizing those your data points in JobProgress. You can import those into Lead Scout, and we can start to market through Lead Scout with that. And we're working on some other more tight-knit integration points as well in the near future.
That's why you had us on, right, Pete? Yeah. He's trying to. We're a few years behind JobProgress, so there's some to do on the integration. But so Peter, so that is a priority for us, and we don't have any integrations with anybody out there today. But the first one that we do, and we're looking forward to it, will be with Pete and JobProgress. So we're really looking forward to that because we know that seamless flow of information is key. Mm-hmm. So that's coming. You had also asked about your involvement, and I think that's a really great question, and honestly tells me kind of you're thinking pretty deep down the line in terms of how do we utilize a tool and how do we know how to cut with the tool. From a marketing perspective, we offer, we call it VIP, or I actually attached a one-pager. So we can come along and essentially kind of be an outsourced marketing support for you. And we can chat about that offline a little bit more, but you're right. In terms of having the platform to execute, you still have to create good copy, good content, and we want to support you. We want you to win because we know if you win, you're going to continue to use that. So there's certain certainly support we can provide you in making it successful.
We saw this really huge need, problem first, and then the need coming out of that. So the problem was there's all these cool tools that are entering home improvement. We think Lead Scout is one of those, but there's all these cool tools that are starting, they're growing, and you can have access to the suite of them if you choose, right? So Company Cam, JobProgress, Lead Scout, Referrals, like there's all sorts of different tools. They're all a new tool that you need to learn, spend time learning, spend time on when you already are kind of strapped for time. And it's a pain in the butt. They all work a little bit differently. Some of them sync nicely between each other, but not all of them, right? So there's all these things that they can't do yet too, because a lot of them are new. So there's this intrinsic pain there to say, I know this would be a great tool for my organization. I know it's what I should be doing, but I just can't. I have only so many hours in a day. So what we've noticed is the tools that are starting to pivot towards a little bit more helpful service, and high touch service. So they have the tech thing over here that's, really nice and it works really well, but maybe it doesn't do everything. And then they layer that with this bubble wrap of hand holding and people that are there to help you, concierges, butlers, whatever you want to call them. those are the tools that are really starting to make strides, right? And people love that because it takes care of that major pain point, which is, I just don't have time for it. I don't have time for it. And so that was a soft pitch for Lead Scout to say, we do that too. We're really high touch and say, hey, we're trying to lean into that and say, if you don't have time to manage this stuff, we'll take care of it for you too. So,
yep.
No, I totally agree with that. I think that we've found that JobProgress, the support side of it is so important. And it's a huge selling point for us to offer this, high-end world-class support, right? To be able to say to these folks right up front, like, I'm here for you, like whenever you need me, our support guys will tell you, like, they're going to give out their cell phone number. You need me in a pinch, text me and say, hey, I'm standing in a customer's living room and I can't figure out how to do this, right? Like, we'll shoot you back a text. It's that personal. Getting back to kind of the informal part of the business, like we talked about earlier, is it by having that informal aspect, we've now given support this more accessible option, right? Like, we've made ourselves more accessible. We're not tied to a 9-to-5 schedule, or, I got to call the support line now, or they're not going to pick up the phone. Like, I can get to these people whenever I need them, whether the case be 6 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night. If I need something, I can probably get an answer, and I think that's a huge portion of it. And like you said, I think being able to offer that is really a huge selling point. And, is really the companies that are setting themselves apart, not only technology based, but being able to support that technology, because these guys are busy. Everybody's busy, right? Time is of the essence. And I think that's kind of what drives the whole contactless sales portion of the business too, is that people are strapped for time. Like, people don't want to spend the time sitting through 6 different contractor appointments. They want to do 1 or 2 and be done with the process, right? Like, I want to knock this thing out and let's move on, right? Like, I got other stuff going on, right? Like, I got my kids here doing school and things like that. Like, I don't want to spend, hours out of my day making this decision. So, so I totally agree with you on that one, Joe.
Well, just to plug you guys further, and I mean, just from a concierge standpoint, I mean, technology it's imperfect. I'm sure there's things on your platform that aren't perfect, and some of these users that use it, hopefully all of them can probably name 1 or 2, but at the end of the day, it's how you support that. There's other CRMs out there, but how do they come alongside and provide that, text me anytime to get it taken care of. And you guys know that more than we do. We're not an essential piece to the operations of a roofing contractor or an exterior contractor. You guys are. And so your ability to, and just to, sing your praises. I mean, we work with a lot of JP contractors, and they speak very highly of you. And I have to believe that a lot of that is just that personal touch and informal support that you give beyond just the technology, because the technology is going to break. I mean, if we sign up for technology, we have to know that it's going to have some kinks and there's going to be some bugs. And Joe and I know that more than most right now, and being a young app. But it's how we handle that and support our customers. That really is what we want to be graded on at the end of the day. Dwayne, you had asked about what's involved in the demo. Whatever you want, man, we can make it really targeted to you. You could set up, we give everybody 14-day free trial. So if you set up an account, we can kind of onboard you. We don't have any onboarding, just the way that the app is, it's not as intensive an onboarding as, like a JobProgress. So we kind of just do that as part of your subscription, but we can do that for you, as part of your 14-day free trial even. So you can schedule something that's more just like a generic account that will walk you through and show you. We'll send you a handwritten note. We'll send you a mailer. Anybody that wants to do that with us. So it's whatever you want the demo to be, but it will be live, and we make sure that we always send everybody a piece of mail, so they know you can send a single mailer if you want, and we're not making it up.
I kind of want to circle back to the initial question. I'd written down some notes when you talked about the millennial generation, the people who are quickly becoming the major buying group when it comes to making these purchases, right? How do we talk to them in the digital space? I wanted to hit on this key, which is omni-channel marketing, omni-channel tactics. Omni means everything, right? So it's overwhelming to think about, but you really need to be on everything today. What does that look like? Okay, so social media, really big. Social media, it breaks down into 2 buckets, and you've got you have to be providing just presence on social media, just be there, be interacting. That looks like photos, it looks like posts, it looks like comments. But then it's also customer support. How are you there when people have questions for you or want to interact with you? How are you quickly engaging with them, providing those quick solutions, quick resolutions through social media? Because that's the public face of your company. Think of it like, it's that front desk at your brick and mortar, right? That's really what social media is today. So you have that. That's one. You also have to be digitally advertising. That's just allocate a budget towards that, right? Even it's just like $1,000 a month, something like allocate a budget to digital advertising. And that kind of comes in 2 streams. One is banner advertising. That's the type of stuff you'd see on ESPN, your favorite news site, right? That's those banner ads. Those aren't conversion ads. You're not going to get a lot of conversions off of those. When I say conversion, I mean you're not going to get people saying, I'm buying your product once they click on that ad. But what you are going to get is brand awareness. They see your stuff over and over and over and over and over again. And when they think of, I need a new roof, I need new siding, who do they think of? They think of you, right? But that's digital advertising. That's one side of it. The other side is more the conversion-focused advertising, which ends up being typically Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Depending on what demographic you're going for, those are the targeted ads that convert because they have a call to action that says, get a quote, or call my service line, right? Whatever that call to action is, it's very specific and oriented towards conversion. Okay. Then you also have direct mail. We're talking digital. Why did I bring up direct mail? Because direct mail is digital now. Mm-hmm. Even if you're sending physical stuff, you're tracking that. You have landing pages. Those URLs go to landing pages. The QR codes go to landing pages. The phone numbers are tracked, and you got the analytics tied to those things. And direct mail and inserts in local magazines and local pamphlets, letters, handwritten notes, all that direct mail stuff that you're doing is a core part of being omni-channel and very present. And then, of course, you need to manage your persona online. So what does that look like? That's your website. Those are your public reviews. If you get 5, anybody that you have an interaction with that is a really positive interaction, they say, I love your service. Thank you so much. Ask them for the review immediately. Say, give me 5 stars, please, and a review. Mm-hmm. Anybody who gives you a 1-star review, you move heaven and earth to make that a 5-star review. I don't care what it takes. Take that 1-star review and move heaven and earth to get it to a 5-star review, right? Give them cash if that's what it takes.
Is it recorded?
Yeah. Right.
I want to touch on some. I know we only have a couple minutes. You mentioned QR codes, Joe.
Yeah.
The quick rule of thumb with QR codes on mailers, unless that real estate has to be used for something else, put a QR code on there, and create some call to action around that QR code that. Whether it be, watch this drone footage of your neighbor's roof, or, avoid these 6 mistakes when dealing with whatever insurance claims, or use your, we like to use little, characters that, of a hand with a phone next to the QR code that says use phone to scan code, right? Or use phone camera to scan code. So give some direction, but create some space in your mailings that allows for the digitalization of that mailer, because it only takes 1 or 2 in a campaign of somebody that would interact with a QR, would prefer to react with a QR code over a phone number. And QR codes for a while there, before COVID, it was like QR codes are kind of down and out. And now you go to a restaurant and that's the menu. And people are interacting with QR codes on a massive scale. You go to Lowe's, Home Depot, there's QR codes and everything. So we're becoming more conditioned to use them. So we ought to use them in our marketing and our print pieces because of what it allows us to do on the tracking and then the digitizing of it and creating an experience, right? Creating an experience for our customers is key. It decommoditizes the process and makes it more about, information and a positive experience. And we can certainly open up doors when we create things digitally from print.
Mm-hmm. We could talk for hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you need to start.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate you guys being on here. I think it's a great topic, some great information here. And you guys always have some great insight on this kind of stuff. That's why I wanted to have you on, because I think this is a topic that's kind of near and dear to you guys and things that you're doing. So I thought it was a good topic to have you guys on to talk about. So I appreciate everybody who jumped in on the chat and asked some good questions there as well, so that we had some talking points there. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it, guys, and look forward to maybe doing another one in the future and picking another topic and jumping on there, and and everybody else who joined us today. So
Let's do it.
Yeah, thank you, guys. All right, we'll see you guys. Thanks.
Where to go here to turn it off?